Sunny bonani dumalang, goeie afternoon, bon dia. Trust you guys are well and having a splendid day, as am I. This is actually the second time that I'm recording this in the here now moment. The first time I ran out of memory 10 minutes into this fabulous story which I was telling. And I really don't like doing second recordings because what I said in the first recording gets mumbled in the second recording, and then I'm like, but have I mentioned what I wanted to mention, or was that mentioned in the first recording? But alas, here we are, second time trying this again. So I was actually, for the purposes of today, going to post what I thought a fabulous rendition of my handpan playing. And I was super excited about it. I thought that it was just such a wonderfully played and powerful piece. And I was super excited because I was like, hey, I have this little baby right here. So it should be able to pick up on the sound really, really brilliantly. And I was like, no, I won't listen to it today because I played it today. And then tomorrow, before I post my video, I'm going to just, channel and allow the vibrations to permeate a beautiful, powerful message for me so that I can anchor the energy. So that's what I did. I listened to it and it was, wow, no, as wonderful as this little lapel is in recording audio for voice, it is most certainly not designed to pick up handpan frequency and vibrations. In fact, it reverberates and creates quite an unpleasant sound. But we learn and we grow and we move on. So yes, next time I try this out, I'll just position the microphone a little further away and not so close to the chest, Anyway, guys, today's story, in hindsight of this pivot that I've needed to take, is me sharing a story with you about my dislike for sugar. I think that's what I'm going to actually title today's episode. Dislike for sugar, something along those lines. I don't know. Let's see. So I've always been curious about where this aversion or disgust, quite a strong word, maybe a little too strong, but I just don't enjoy sugar. I know that might come as an absolute shock, horror for some people. And everyone always tells me when I tell them that I don't like sugar, it's like, oh, you're so lucky. And I'm like, well, in some ways, yes, I guess I am. But in other ways, wow, guys, there's nothing more sometimes that I would like to do than tuck into a delicious slice of cake, or finish an entire gelato or an ice cream or a lollipop at the beach. I'd love to do that. But wow, no, guys, 2 licks of that ice cream or gelato and I'm like, oh, I'm done. I'm done. My friends and family can attest to this. It's an anomaly. So this has always been the case since I was born. In fact, every time my mom tried to give me something with any sugar in or anything that was sweet in any shape, way, or form, I literally had a physical reaction, an aversion to it. And I've always been so curious about that because in a world where sugar runs rampant and is even being used to keep people coming back for more, if you know, you know, I was so interested to find out why is it that I don't like sugar? And I guess that's why I'm sharing this story. So around 2 decades ago, yes, that long ago, I did this fabulous regression process where they take you back to alternate lives, which you may have led. And you are essentially encouraged to use the power of your imagination, I would say, very simply. And it's always very interesting for me to see what it just arises. And I know people would say, oh, but that's just your imagination. Yes, true. But where does that imagination come from? Where do those thoughts arrive from? Where do those sensations and perhaps visceral feelings that we feel inside our body stem from. So yes, I do believe that the soul has experienced many avatar states, not only in this human form, but in many other forms. And I've been blessed enough to experience this myself. So today's story is all about where I believe my aversion for sugar stemmed from. So around the 1600th century, if you can even think that far back, I used to work in a bakery, like a really old school bakery. And I remember the frock that I was wearing. It was very basic, very humble, nothing fancy, which meant I was clearly a simple maiden. And I remember that I used to live and reside just above the bakery. It was part of the deal, I'm assuming. And I also remember being by myself, completely by myself. I felt the essence of me not having a mom or a dad or anyone that I knew. I could really sense this feeling of just being in my own space and in my own company. And I was fortunate enough to live just above the bakery. And I remember on a particular day, there was a woman who walked in with the most gorgeous outfits, beautiful outfit, as you can imagine, in the 1600th century, beautiful. And she walked in with her daughter. Her daughter had the most amazing ginger hair parted down the middle, and it was just locks flowing down. She had these little freckles on her face, and she almost looked like this beautiful porcelain doll. And I remember her chatting to her mom and asking her, Mom, what are all those little things that are over there? And then having this discussion. And then she turned to me and was kind of like looking at me as if to say, hi, can you help me? Because like, I don't know what to take. And I remember in that particular moment thinking to myself, and I think I even said it to her, was, oh, don't have any of these because they are really, really sickly sweet. And I remember how I felt when I said that. These particular pastries that she was interested in were just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And I'm not 100% sure of the reasoning as to why that was. But I almost felt like because I had been exposed to what I was exposed to in that environment, I didn't want her to purchase those particular pastries, and I did deem them and see them as being sickly sweet. And those words will forever be very vivid in my mind and in my memory, which I thought was really interesting. And I believe that that definitely has got something to do with my aversion towards sugar in some shape, way, or form. So needless to say, after that event, I remember it was nighttime, and I guess regression is like having a dream. It makes sense in certain parts, but there might be certain components that you kind of shift from this place to that place. So it's kind of that feeling. At least it was for me in my experience. I remember still in this life, waking up in the middle of the evening, in the night, and I remember waking up to the place that I was staying just above the bakery or the store, having the whole space surrounded in fire, completely engulfed. I mean, there was no way I was going to get out of there. It was a small little space and it was completely engulfed. And I remember passing in that life of smoke inhalation, and obviously I clearly burnt to a crisp charcoal self, I'm assuming. And I just remember how I passed completely alone in that particular life. And the next life that I went into was the complete opposite, which perhaps I'll share with you on another day. Perhaps tomorrow, that will be my story to share. But let's stay with me as a bakery girl, shall we? Or working in the bakery, should I say. And I remember from this particular memory that I have of this life being it being a very hard, being a very lonely, but somewhat content life. But my aversion for the pastries that were on offer and were being served were very interesting and curious to me. Nonetheless, as you might do with past life regression, you take the information that's revealed itself in the session, and you might actually go and do some research on those elements and components. So I was curious, and I went to go and just research, well, what was the first thing that I thought of? It was the London fires. For some strange reason, I was like, well, died in a fire. And I remember everything being made out of wood and like being 1600th century. And I don't know. So I just checked, like, when were the London fires? And it was in that century. I stand to be corrected, but I think it was 1640 or 1662 or something around that. If you know the answer, drop it in the comments. I'd actually love to know the factual answer to that. And I remember reading in this article how they assume, because no one actually really knows how the London fires started, nor do they know how many people perished in the London fires, because it was before the time of taking census and counting how many people were living on the block, or however it is that you do it. So it's still quite an anomaly, but it was obviously very destructive, and the destruction was evident. And I remember reading in that particular article that the fire, they assume, may have started on a particular street called Confectionary Street. I shit you not. Confectionary Street. And I was like, and I worked in a bakery that had a whole bunch of sweet goods on offer. Wow, that's all I thought, like, wow. There was something in there that I was like, okay, this is a bit interesting. So yes, I thought that was always just something that stuck with me. And it was probably maybe 8 years on that I did this regression, and I recalled this memory or life, that I went to work for a fabulous company that was at that time independent before they were taken over by a huge conglomerate. But I used to work for the likes of Cadbury. If you know Cadbury used to be a company that was based in the UK, and it's all about the love of chocolate and the good quality chocolate. And back in that day, they really had what I thought and what I felt and I believed were really good ethics and love, their real love for just wanting to provide good quality chocolate that was accessible and affordable to people. I don't necessarily have that view now today. But at that time, I guess when I was working for the corporation, I really did appreciate working for them. And I thought always how bizarre and how strange that I am now going to work for a confectionery company. And the category or the role that I took on was actually an insight manager for the confectionery team. So it wasn't even with chocolates. It was with the confectionery team, which were responsible for making chewing gum and bubble gum and all things candy. And I just want to reflect on just the beauty and the games that God likes to play with us, and how even within this life, in this here and now moment, there are so many aspects and elements. Like, we get so many hints and little tasters and little teasers on how this current life in this here now moment is so interwoven and interlaced and interlinked with other lives that we are living in alternate time spaces and dimensions. And I think that's just fucking awesome. Like, I just think that is just so epic. I really, really do. And it really excites me, and I really do subscribe to it and believe it. I know that not everybody does. In fact, I get spat on by a couple of very close family members in my close circle who frown upon alternate lives and reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. But hey man, I've had these amazing experiences that maybe I actually would like to share with you some more. So tomorrow I will be tuning in with you to share another alternate life that I have lived and experienced, which is completely counter and opposite to the life that I've just shared with you in the fabulous bakery, where there were all these sweet treats and confectionery goodies on Confectionery Street. And yes, I'll maybe tap in and share a life which I believe was more in South America, and I died a very, very, very old lady, surrounded by so many people in the community. So yes, I do believe that we are gifted these experiences to fully understand and embody the duality that is life, and that comes in all shapes. It comes in the form of experiences, it comes in the form of emotions, it comes in the form of chapters and books, and so many different ways to narrate what the soul essence is here to experience. So thank you for tuning in for today's episode. That's something about sugar. Still not sure on the title, but it will be very apparent when I post it. And here's to us tuning in to my other life in tomorrow's episode, and reflecting upon the beauty of this gift that is duality, I guess. As always, continue to sow those seeds, allow for the flow and magic of life to find you, so that you may continue to grow, illuminate, and glow. Until tomorrow's episode, stay magical, stay brilliant, stay bright, and stay that infinite delight. Peace out.